Hi, welcome to day 18 in the story of Jesus in the book of Luke. As I was reading Luke 18, it is actually filled with multiple stories and teachings that Jesus left with us, and just highlighting some of the points of chapter 18 is the persistent prayer and faith, about an unjust judge and a humble tax collector being justified and not the Pharisee, and having a childlike faith to enter the kingdom of heaven, the dangers of riches, the foretelling of his death, and also the healing of a blind beggar. So it's filled with all of these wonderful stories that Jesus was leaving with us. But I would like to focus particularly on the first 8 verses of Luke. And it deals with the widow and her persistence in going to an unjust judge and going to him over and over again and petitioning for justice. Now the judge had nothing to do with God. He was unjust. He could care less about people and pretty much did his own thing. But the widow was persistent in going to him constantly. And because of her status, she was even more so ignored in being a widow. But this did not deter her from consistently going back to him and not giving up, even though she was looked down upon. And finally, the judge decided to grant her her wish, to satisfy her petition, but also to satisfy his selfish desires of not wanting to hear her again, and also not being in a position where she could actually cause physical harm to him, because she wanted her request, she wanted to be heard. And so this gives us a lesson of how much more is our God that's consistently pursuing us, and not giving up on us, that he wants us to pursue him as well, and that he will hear us and grant us our prayers, our petitions, and serve us with justice. And most of the time we read this story and we think we have a fervent prayer life, but most of the time we are unlike the widow, in that we are not persistent enough. Sometimes we feel like, oh, God doesn't want to hear us. He doesn't want to hear our requests over and over again, or our requests are just too silly or too minor, or he doesn't have time for that. But he's teaching us the opposite, that he wants us to be persistent and to never give up. So I like that point of never giving up, being persistent, because he never gives up on us, and he's always persistent in saving us and pursuing us. Now, throughout chapter 18, all of these lessons and parables that he's telling are taking place as he's traveling to Jerusalem for the last time, knowing his fate of death for our salvation. And he's foretelling his crucifixion to the disciples, and it's kind of going over their heads. They can't really grasp the thought of it or understand it. But he's telling them this, and the last part of it is with the blind beggar. And so it's telling us that even with the blind beggar, he was there and he was persistent in calling out to Jesus. And he had faith to call out to him, and Jesus heard him, and he granted him his request of sight and healed him instantly, which is also like salvation. He granted his request for salvation instantly, and he followed him. And because of the resurrection, it gives us confidence in how we live a life of sacrificial service to God and also to others. I'd like to finish with verses of 29 and 30, in which it talks about the rich official. And the ending talks about Jesus' response. And it says, "Yes," said Jesus, "you won't regret it. No one who has sacrificed a home, spouse, brothers, sisters, parents, children, whatever, will lose out. It will all come back multiplied many times over in your lifetime." And then the bonus of eternal life. So let that be our goal, to never give up, because because at the end there's a bonus of eternal life.